Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right. Yeah, the SEC, they're eating their own. I had a bad feeling about how this season's been headed. You can tell it's going to get difficult for the SEC. Oh, and I wasn't able to do a video yesterday. I was on the golf course because the weather was perfect, and it's the last really great day of weather we're going to have. And I'll show you a little video of one of the players in my group. He almost hit it in the road, and I know some of you golfers will enjoy this. Oh, we got all of that.
Yep. He's got a beautiful backswing. Oh, he got all of that one.
Yep. The cars were coming by. Of course, he got a 4 or 2 yelled at him, but he was literally 1 inch from the out of bounds line going into the road. This happens in our group sometimes. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you. On with the show. You've got some teams that are very deserving to get in this playoff, 12-team playoff, and they may miss it. And it's going to really irritate some teams badly. Anyway, let's get into this. And you can see what the problem is. The SEC is good from top to bottom. They really are. There's a couple of teams down here that have played really poorly, and that's Mississippi State. I can't believe Kentucky. See them at 1-6 and 4-6 is really surprising to me. That's a team I thought would win 7 or 8 ball games. And then you've got a really good team down here at 1-5 at Auburn, who is 4-6 total, but they're loaded with talent, but they just got a quarterback problem. Oklahoma came into the SEC and they found out. And then Florida's been coming on. And then all down through here, Arkansas, Vanderbilt has been a major problem. They have kind of messed things up for certain teams, especially Alabama. And we still got to play Vanderbilt, and they are problematic. That's one of the reasons why the SEC is so screwed up right now. You don't have a bunch of top dogs. You've got a bunch of really good teams that are massed together with 2 losses. And you can see that through here. And I'm going to tell you what, South Carolina, had they not been creaked out of that LSU game, they'd be sitting pretty right now. They've really been a problem for a lot of teams. So they've got 5 SEC wins. They're another team that's creating chaos.
Why? Because our defense is good. They're good.
Then you've got 6 teams up here that are pretty darn good, starting with Ole Miss, Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia, all with 2 losses. Texas A&M's got 2 losses, 8-2. And then Texas only has 1 loss, but they don't have any quality wins. The one tough team they played was Georgia, and Georgia beat them. And the reason this is a problem, all 4 of those teams that are stuck in there with 2 losses have beaten each other. So there's really a difficult task to try to differentiate the teams, because you put one team in to the college football playoff and not the other, but they beat that team, they're going to go ballistic, because that's the tiebreaker, is head-to-head. So it's going to be real tricky. Now, here's Crane & Company talking about this a little bit, and I like watching this show. These guys are very knowledgeable.
Tell everybody why. So, because this was the hardest part, but we had the easiest outcome because the work's kind of done for you.
All right, so everybody listen here closely, because I only want to have to say this once. I know it's complicated. There's a log jam with these 2-loss SEC teams right now, and there is absolutely no way to square it, because they've all beaten up on everybody. They've all beaten up on each other, and they all have 1 additional loss. Texas A&M a little bit different right now, because they have the 1 conference loss to South Carolina, as the fan was talking about earlier. But they also have that other out-of-conference loss, which is to Notre Dame. So leave them out of it for 1 second, because mostly I'm concerned with Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Tennessee. Here's how we did it, because there's no order you can put them in to make everybody happy, since they all beat each other in a head-to-head squad. Here's the way it would work out right this second for the SEC tiebreaker rules. And I'm going to bring it up from the SEC's website. Head-to-head competition, we talked about this with Matt Moscona. You have to go to the next point, because they all have the same record in the SEC. Record versus common conference opponents. You go down to the next one. Essentially, you get to D, where it's cumulative conference winning percentage of all conference opponents among the tied teams. So basically what that means is you add up the wins and losses for every opponent in the conference that these 4 teams would have played. You add that up and you divide it so that you get a percentage. Alabama right now would lead that with a 53%. I guess you could call it a strength of schedule.
That's what we'll call it.
Georgia right now, 45% would be second. Ole Miss, 36%. And Tennessee right now would be 34%. So a few things right there. That's how the SEC would rank order these if one of these teams was, say, to be in that second position to go to the conference championship to play Texas or Texas A&M, something like that. Or if both of those other teams teams have 2 losses, then you'd have to redo the order. So that's how the rank order would happen. That's why we ranked them 7, 8, 9, and 10, even though number 10, Tennessee, beat Alabama, and Georgia just had a terrible loss against Ole Miss.
Oh, and by the way, if you make the SEC championship game, that may be the worst thing that can happen to you. Because if you play in that, one of you is going to end up with a 3rd loss, and that could be used against you with the college football playoff.
You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious.
So be careful what you wish for, SEC teams. Getting rewarded with the SEC championship game may not be what you think it is. So anyway, that's just more food for thought. All right, so that's how they're ranking it, and that's probably pretty close to how college football playoff ranking will go. However, you've got some squirrely things in there. You've got conference champions. They don't have the group of 12 team in there that's guaranteed to be in the top 12. So you've got some really weird things in there that could kick one of those 2-team loss SEC clubs out, which is almost certainly going to happen unless somebody loses. And let's take a look at that. And we talked about that a little bit in the past, but Ole Miss has still got to get past Florida at Florida. And Texas has got to get past Kentucky. A&M's got to get past Auburn at Auburn. Alabama's got to get by Oklahoma at Oklahoma. And then the following week, Ole Miss has got to beat Mississippi State, but that's at home. Georgia's got to beat Georgia Tech. Tennessee's got to beat Vanderbilt. That's no easy win anymore.
He ain't lying.
Alabama's got to beat Auburn. It's at Alabama. That's going to be tough. And then Texas and Texas A&M. So a lot can happen in these last 2 weeks that'll probably help figure these things out. And it's pretty typical to have some odd things happen at the end of the year. But if they don't, somebody's going to get creaked out of this. Out of those 4 teams they had linked up in there, it's going to get tricky. And whoever gets thrown out is going to be furious. I mean, they're going to be fit to be tied. Because if you don't include Ole Miss, they're going to immediately say, we beat Georgia. You don't include Tennessee, they're going to say, we beat Alabama. The big problem I see, I can't imagine them not putting Georgia. I think Georgia deserves it. They've had the toughest schedule. Alabama, they've got the name. And the college football playoff loves Alabama.
Learn it, know it, live it.
Well,
if you don't think they do, ask Florida State. They love Bama. And Bama has deserved a lot of that love because they've been great for a long time. Back in the day when they had Nick Saban. I love saying back in the day when they had Nick Saban. That's a good thing. For anybody that's played him knows. But you look at these other conferences, they're not beating up on each other. What you've got are a bunch of haves and a ton of have-nots. The Big Ten is a prime example of it. You look at these teams, Indiana has not played a top 25 team, even though they played a bunch of Big Ten games because everybody they played is no good. So you've got 3 really good teams, probably actually 4 really good teams. I don't know if Indiana's any good at all because they've not played a single real team. And then under that, you've just got a bunch of teams that aren't very good. I mean, Iowa's up here in number 6. We beat Iowa 35-0 last year. And we were middle of the road. You got Illinois, Minnesota, Washington, Rutgers. You know, Michigan's lost 5 games this year. Wisconsin, USC has been terrible. They're 5-5. And all down the list, look at all these teams that are just, they can't win a ball game against anybody except if they're playing each other. So they're not eating their own at all. The Big 12 is the same thing. You got just a couple of good teams. Is all you've got is Colorado, who has 2 losses. And I guess I'm saying Colorado's a pretty darn good team. And then BYU, they got beat by, who the crap beat them? Kansas, who's 3-4 and 4-6. So Big 12 has been a total disaster. But one of them's going to get in, and they're going to try to get 2 in, and I just don't see it. And then you've got another prime example, SMU, Clemson, Miami. And Clemson's already got 2 losses. Then look down here at the bottom. It is just pitiful, pitiful, pitiful. Florida State has just been a disaster. I don't know what the crap's happened to them. California, Stanford, Wake, all these teams right here are easy, easy wins. UNC, their head coach was ready to quit. They finally won a few ball games. They're starting to feel like maybe he won't quit, but he might. And all down the list, I mean, Virginia, we beat Virginia by like 50 points last year. And NC State, we beat them by 41 this year. And they were a top 25 team at the time. There's just no other good teams but just 1 or 2. So the SEC, like I said, they're just beating the crap out of each other. And that's where all the well, not all the talent. Well, there are some teams that have some serious talent, Oregon, Ohio State, teams like that. But most of the talent's in the SEC. And now that you've got parity because of the transfer portal, Alabama and Georgia can't sit there and amass tons of 5-stars and they're all sitting on the bench, half of them. They're not doing that anymore. They're saying, oh, well, I can go over here to Ole Miss, or I can go to Tennessee, or I can go to South Carolina, wherever I want to go, get some money, but more importantly, I get to play. So the NFL folks get to see me. Hey, I'm all SEC now. I'm going to get the big bucks instead of sitting there waiting until their 4th year at Georgia or their 3rd year at Alabama or wherever. So it's understandable. The problem is you get into that college football playoff, they're going to pretend that it's just about the record. I know how they do. They've got a chip on their shoulder. The ones that aren't SEC people, they've got a big chip on their shoulder, and they're mad at the SEC because they get a lot of love. And probably rightfully so on some level, but, you know, the SEC, it
just means more.
But anyway, I got a bad feeling about the college football playoff. Some things need to happen for Tennessee to ensure that they get in. Right now, they technically should, but I got a bad feeling that if some things don't fall their way, they're going to get kicked out. And that's going to tick me off, and the 8 million people in the state of Tennessee are going to flip out, or at least half of them, because this is how the college football playoff scene is going to be.
He doesn't like you.
I'm sorry.
I don't like you either.
Yeah. You've got plenty of national writers in there that are going to go after Tennessee as well. So I'm concerned. You know, there's still 2 weeks to go, and there's tons of things that can happen. So let's see how this plays out. Like I said, BYU lost a game. That should help all the teams that are in that top 12. And if you get 1 or 2 more good losses in there, that'll kind of square things up. But if it doesn't and the teams win that should, man, it's going to be a mess. So we'll see how this plays out. But I don't trust this college football playoff as far as I can throw them.
Well, with your bad knee, Ed, you shouldn't throw anybody.
So anyway, if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Let's be able to continue to cover all these big college sports stories. If you've not subscribed, hit this little button right here. It won't cost you a dime. Help you get my videos. And right over here is the most recent video YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.